Hey, board gamers, BJ from Board Game Gumbo here, back with another episode of Gumbo Live. It's episode number 66. Gumbo Live is the #1 Facebook Live talk show dedicated to board gaming. Our special guest tonight, we've got Erin Dean, the author of For the Love of Board Games, and Eric Rayl, the director of the Game Designers documentary. Hopefully, we got a little technical problems, but hopefully we'll have both of them on tonight. Gumbo Live is a proud member of Punchboard Media. Check out our other fine members like the State of Games podcast. Eric should know that one. He was on recently with Chris, Daryl, and TC. They've got a great podcast that focuses on con travel, games played, design tips, news from around the world of board gaming, and my favorite part, what really grinds their gears, Punchboard Media, where we all bring something to the table. Hit us up on social media tonight, on Twitter at BoardGameGumbo, or on Facebook.com/BoardGameGumbo. And we'll be looking for your questions in the chat. Let's get right to our guests, Erin Dean and Eric Rayl. Welcome to the show, Erin.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on the show.
Hey, Eric, welcome aboard, man.
Hey, how's it going? Hopefully I don't look too messed up.
Eric, normally you don't look green, I'm assuming, right?
Just on Saturdays.
So everybody out there, chat crew, we're having a little bit of technical problems with Eric's feed, but hopefully we can get that figured out. Hey, there's a lot of people that haven't met you before. So Erin, give us the elevator pitch. Who is Erin Dean?
So I am the author of For the Love of Board Games, which is a book that explores how modern popular board games were created by interviewing over 50 board game designers about their games. It goes into games that they never published, but they designed. It goes into how they got into board gaming. It goes into their design process. It's a very interesting book, and I encourage gamers and designers alike to check it out.
Yes, absolutely. And I've got a picture of it up on the screen right now. That's from the Kickstarter page. I'm not sure exactly how it looks now that it's come out, but you had a ton of different people in there, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. How about you, Eric? Give us the elevator pitch. Who is Eric Rayl?
Well, I'm just a guy who picked up a camera one day and started making a documentary. Wanted to make a documentary about board game designers, so I just grabbed my camera and went out and did that.
I'm curious, Erin, how did you get started in board gaming?
So I was gifted Ticket to Ride in high school, and I just fell in love with the hobby after that. It kind of snowballed from there. Collection started growing, interest in the hobby started growing, and now, my career is in the board game industry. All my personal projects are fueled by the industry, and it's amazing. I love the hobby, and I love the people in it.
What do you do in the industry?
So I have 2 part-time jobs. I'm the social media manager for Lucky Duck Games, a Polish board game publisher.
Sure.
Their big hit is Chronicles of Crime.
Absolutely.
And I also just started a job recently as a project manager at Genius Games, which is a small board game publisher in St. Louis, Missouri, that focuses on STEM-based games.
Okay. I'm thinking they had 2 recent games, if I remember right.
They had Cytosis was a big one.
Right.
Them. Periodic was on Kickstarter pretty recently. But yeah, all their games are usually science-based or math-based, and but they have really cool mechanics.
And Eric, what about you? What's the really got you into this great hobby of ours?
Well, the game that really started off was Dominion. That was the first kind of game that had like any agency to it. And I just kind of got hooked after that.
What were you a Magic player before you started playing Dominion? Because I know a lot of people that have played Magic, like myself, got attracted as soon as they saw the idea of a game like Dominion, where it boils down everything we like about collectible card gaming without having to collect the crack,
Yeah, no, actually, I've never played Magic before. My friends were playing it in high school, like when it first came out and everything. And but I actually never got into it. I never really played any board games that we all know. until about maybe 5 years ago
Okay.
when I went to my friend's house and he pulled out Dominion. And we started playing that with a small group there. So that's kind of where it all happened.
You guys have named two of the biggest ones because two of the three that I find most of the guests that I interview, that's what got them back into the hobby or into the hobby for the first time. It's usually Catan, it's usually Ticket to Ride, or it's Dominion. One of those three. Different avenues to get in, but it always seems like it's one of those three that got them hooked. Maybe they were like me, they played games all of their lives, but never really played hobby games until they found something like this. Or it's people that had never played games before and saw Will Wheaton on tabletop or something else going on, and they see one of those three games. So there's Jay Peak checking in. Boy, Jay, we have not heard from you in a while. Jay's kind of sworn off of social media for a while. I'm sorry to hear that, Jay. But Jay's a good guy, and he's got a great YouTube channel. If you ever get a chance, he does all the flair for board games if you ever get a chance to do that. It's a live show, as you know. We got people checking on all night. We got Adam Austin checking in. We'll talk to him pretty soon. And Steve O'Rourke, who helps me out with the show. He's a producer of the show. He says, hello, Erin, and hello, Eric.
Hey, Steven.
Hello.
So, Erin, you were telling me that you played a game recently, and I'm curious what you think about it, and also to see if Eric has played it. Roll and Rights are all the age this year. I've got Erin Dean and Eric Rayl on Gumbo Live, and you've played Ganz, Schon, Clever. Erin, what do you think of it?
Yeah, I love it. I am in a roll and write craze right now, or whatever you want to call it. Another favorite of mine is Beat the Dice game. It's a very meaty fishing roll and write, but that's pretty clever. I played it with my family this weekend, and they loved it. Somehow my cousin got 420 points, which I don't think is possible. I think she cheated, but who knows? Maybe she's just brilliant and she beat everyone's high score. I'm not really sure, but for those who don't know, it's a roll and write game. So you can compare it to Yahtzee. So you basically roll these colored dice. You're marking things off on your sheet to maximize your points and unlock things that give you bonuses and more points. And it's just a very simplistic, satisfying experience.
Steve, I think you recognize that what Erin's talking about is exactly what my wife and I did one time when we scored 360 points, and it turned out we went one too many rounds, and so that's how we got those bonus points. But Adam says, hey, he's played three Genius games, Ion, Covalence, and Linkage. Great science-based games. You should be familiar with all those, right, Erin?
Yeah, no, those are actually some of their I'm surprised he's played all those. That's awesome, because those are three of the first games that Genius Games ever published. So he's obviously a hardcore fan. So thanks so much for tuning in.
Adam's a big guy that likes to check out different cons, especially where they have the newest games or big libraries. So it doesn't surprise me that he's played those games. Chuck Yeager's checking in. Chuck's the big head of the Gateway and Filler Games Facebook group that I love visiting. Steve and I visit all the time. He says he's still waiting for the right roll and write that sparks his interest. Ganz, Schon, Clever, Chuck. It's fantastic. And here's how I know. Steve O'Rourke loves it. He says Ganz, Schon, Clever is completely addictive. Your cousin used BJ strategy. See, I told you he would remember that callback from a month ago. Eric, have you gotten a chance to play Ganz, Schon, Clever?
No, I actually haven't heard of it. I don't know what that means, but yeah, I haven't heard of that one yet.
So Ganz, Schon, Clever, it's by a designer named Wolfgang Warsch, and I still now I don't remember. Is Wolfgang one of the people that you interviewed, Erin?
Wolfgang Kramer, I interviewed. So a different Wolfgang.
Different Wolfgang. So Wolfgang Warsch literally came out of nowhere in the last 18 months, in my opinion. I never heard him before, about a year or two ago, and all of a sudden, over the last year and a half, he's had 5 of the hottest games on BGG, and all in different types of games. Everything from big midweight Euros like Quaxa Quedlinburg to these little crazy little rolling lights like Ganz, Schon, Clever and Doppelt so Clever. They're themeless, but these roll and rights are a lot of fun, Eric. It's that, it's everything you wanted Yahtzee to be a long time ago. Just really clever. And Erin, one of the things that I like, and you might like it too, it's the fact that when you're able to combo your dice and just bounce back and forth between all the colors, you just feel so smart.
I know, this unlocks this and this unlocks this, and oh my gosh, I'm still crossing things off. Yeah, that's the coolest experience when you can get those really big bonuses and unlock stuff. Yeah.
So the American translation, Eric, is "That's So Clever" from the Ganz, Schon Clever name. And I actually, I don't have either one of those. I've got the French version because I wanted it so bad. I bought it from a buddy of mine in New Jersey, the French version of it. And I'm drawn a Très Fouté is the name of it. Very, very clever is the name of that game. But it's Stephen Bonacore from Stronghold Games who is going. It should be out right now. In fact, it should be out on the street right now, right?
I have the English version, so yep.
Oh, so you have the Stronghold version?
I do.
Okay. And that is Ganz, Schon Clever. That's a really cool one. What about you, Eric? Have you played anything recently?
Yeah. Last weekend I played Catan for the first time.
Okay.
So it's not a new one, but like, I played a whole bunch of different games and everything. But one game that I've been missing out on for ages here is Catan. So I finally got the chance to play that. And it was enjoyable. It was fun. So I had a fun time.
You know that I love Catan. It's one of the first games I bought when I got back into the hobby. And one thing I don't like about it is, and I tell everybody to stay away from it. You'll hear people talk about, oh, you got to get the expansion. I'm telling you that 5 to 6 expansion is voodoo to me. It takes a good game that you can play in roughly about 70 minutes, maybe an hour and a half, maybe 60 minutes, depending on how well people know about it. And it takes it into a slog fest that takes 3 or 4 hours. 5 or 6 people is just, I think it's just too long, and it just stretches out for no good reason. What did you think of Catan?
Yeah, I thought it was fun. It's like a fun mix of luck and, having agency in the game. I think like a lot of hobby games nowadays are more just like pure control. And, well, I guess it depends on what you're playing, but maybe not so much dice rolling, but it's always fun to have like a little bit of dice rolling in there for the Euro games.
Interesting. So Jay has tried it out, and he is mentioning Doppelt So Clever coming out soon. I talked to Steven, I guess fairly recently, a couple of weeks ago, and Steven's got a whole line, Erin, of all of these roll and writes. Apparently Wolfgang Warsch has a bunch of different ideas for roll and writes, and he's got a couple other designers, and Steven's going all in for these roll and writes. Eric, if you haven't played one of them, it's like the hottest thing in board gaming right now. Everybody's got roll and writes. In fact, one of my favorite games of all time, it's in my top 10, is a game called Imperial Settlers. It's a card game that you might be familiar. Okay. Portal Games announced that they're doing a roll and write called Imperial Settlers, the roll and write. I mean,
I saw that. That's very cool.
Ignacy Trevicek, the designer, just said, you know what? I couldn't come up with a clever name, so I just called it what it is. It's Imperial Settlers, the roll and write. And I like that. That's not bad at all.
Yeah, that sounds fun. I'm going to look forward to that one.
Steve makes a good point here. He says, going back to classics I missed is a pleasure. I joined the hobby after these were old hat, but Carcassonne, Seven Wonders, and others, they broke the hobby open for a reason. And I totally agree. What people think is a classic to them is when they came in. So for me, it's Ticket to Ride and games like that. And I have to go back and try to catch up on the games that I missed. I never got to play Kalis, and I love worker placement games. So I want to explore all the ones that led up to the games that I love. Mm-hmm. And I think we all have to go back there. So if you came into the hobby after Settlers of Catan came out, go back and play Catan and see why people liked it. Go back and play Puerto Rico. You may not like it, but at least you know where the games of today are coming from, right?
Exactly.
The Ganz, Schon Clever and its sequel, Doppelt So Clever, Eric, you can actually play for free on their app. They want you to play the app for free because they know you're going to get addicted to it and go out and buy it like Erin and I did. I'm telling you, these are really good games. So that is Ganz, Schon Clever, and we talked about Settlers of Catan. I got to play a game recently. I'm a big Days of Wonder fan. I don't know if you guys like Days of Wonder games. I know you mentioned Ticket to Ride. The River was a game that caught my eye at Gen Con, and also Johnny Pack, who was on the show a couple of weeks ago, talked about it. It's got that typical Days of Wonder thing. Days of Wonder releases one game a year. They usually have fantastic production value. It's also by one of my favorite designers, Sebastian Pochon, who's a Swiss designer. He designed a game called Jaipur that you might have played, or Isfahan, and he's designed a bunch of different games. I don't know. What's that?
Jamaica as well. Yep.
Jamaica? Yeah, I've never played Jamaica. I need to play Jamaica. But was he one of the ones you interviewed, Aaron?
Yeah.
Eric? I mean, Aaron?
Yeah, he's in the book, and he was a great guy to interview for sure.
Man, he seems really smart. And what I like about Aaron, what I like about Sebastian is that his games are streamlined to the point where they're fun, but they still leave in the elements that are unique. Each one of his games has a little bit of clever twist. So I was interested in the river. Number one, I play a lot of games with people just getting into the hobby. I play a lot of games with my family who are not as deep into the hobby as I am. So I'm always looking for games that I can teach them a new mechanic to them that's still, fun for us and simple for them to grok. And the river fits that, I think. It's a relatively simple worker placement game. It's got colorful graphics. It's got an okay theme. After playing it as much as I liked it, and I played it twice now, as much as I liked it, I still think going back to games like Lords of Waterdeep or Champions of Midgard or my favorite worker placement game, New Bedford, I think those are not only as easy to teach as the river, but they've got better themes too. The whole idea of moving down a river and placing down settlements in this undiscovered new world, I don't know. What do you guys think, Eric? Is that something that interests you?
Yeah, it sounds like a fun theme to me.
Okay.
I like Days of Wonder as well. In fact, I think Days of Wonder had a game out several years ago, maybe like around 20 or 2007, 2008, something like that. It's probably I don't know, one of their early games or something. But I actually saw that in a store one time, and I think that was actually my first exposure to these kind of games.
Okay.
That's interesting. Days of Wonder. I've never seen anything like that before.
Do you remember the game?
No, I don't recall it. I was just gonna like a random kind of like an upscale hobby shop of sorts, like in like a beach town in North Carolina. And I saw that and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I never knew there was these kind of games. And then I completely forgot about it after that experience. I just remembered about it like just now. And then like several years later, I played Dominion. So that was actually my first exposure, was seeing those Days of Wonder games in that store.
They're usually striking when you see them on the shelf. Aaron, do you have a favorite Days of Wonder game that you played?
Oh, definitely. I mean, Ticket to Ride will always be near and dear to my heart just because it introduced me to the hobby. But I'm a big fan of deduction and mystery, and I'm a big fan of Mystery of the Abbey, which is one of Days of Wonder's first games. And basically, it has a really rich theme, and the fact that a monk has been murdered, and you have to figure out among all the monks that are left who committed the murder. So you ask each other questions and kind of deduce things, and ask questions like, was the murderer, or how many bearded monks have you crossed off? And that eventually gives you information. You're able to deduce who did it. And yeah, great production value, just like all the other Days of Wonder games, and really rich theme.
Here, I've got it up on the screen right here. Right, I had it behind my. I knew I had it somewhere, and I had it right behind my desk here. Mystery of the Abbey. It's boy, it came out a while back, 2005.
Yeah,
but I don't find it showing its age. It's still a good game. It's still fun to play. Again, it's that intro level gaming that Days of Wonder is known for. You mentioned Ticket to Ride. That's most people's one of their favorite Days of Wonder games, or maybe Memoir 44. But I've been such a huge fan of Ticket to Ride over the years. I don't know. I can't even tell you how many played it. 20, 30 times. And usually I'm a honk. When I find a game, I try to get all the expansions and all the sequels and all. I've never played anything else but the base Ticket to Ride. I even have the big special 10th edition with all the cool stuff on it, but I've never played any of the others. So at BGG Con, I finally said, I got to try one of the others. And I traded with a guy for Ticket to Ride Europe, and I'm going to break it out in a couple of weeks at our local convention. So I'm anxious. I can't believe I have never played any of the other Ticket to Rides at all. But the base game is so much fun. I just, it seems like enough for me.
Yeah. I find Ticket to Ride Europe more strategic. There's more decision making, but I still go back to the United States version from time to time.
All right, so we've talked about our games. Now let's get to one of the reasons that I wanted both of you on the show. I wanted to talk about your two projects. Steve O'Rourke actually came up with this topic. He said passion projects. You know, people that are willing to stick their neck and do something that no one else is doing. And we thought naturally of you two because of the type of projects that you put on. So let me get to Eric first. Eric, you've got your project out, and I've got a picture of it here if I can find it. The Game Designers documentary. Tell us, if you don't mind, real quick, how did the Game Designers documentary come about? Oh, did I lose Eric?
He looks like he's frozen a little bit.
Oh, you know what? I'll send him down and we'll see if we can connect with him again. And you know what? We'll switch gears and I'm going to go over to you, Erin. So, Erin, tell us all about the project, the book that you wrote. You've got the book For the Love of Board Games. How did you get started with that idea?
So first off, I want to just, say for you guys, I love the fact that you're calling it passion projects, because that just totally rings true with For the Love of Board Games. It's a complete passion project for me. Basically, I also did a documentary a while back in the spring of 2017 for a class of mine at my university. And I loved doing it because it was combining my two passions, video and board games. And it had been about a year since I released that documentary on YouTube, which you can search the Board Game Boom documentary on YouTube. It's up to
cool.
40,000 views, I believe.
I gotta check that out.
And I was like, I want to do another board game project, but I don't know of what. I don't really want to do another documentary. And I kind of just got it in my head, maybe I'll write a book about board games. And I thought, it'd be really cool to interview some of the best board game designers in the business. And sure enough, 53 interviews later, For the Love of Board Games was born and launched on Kickstarter.
Who was the first person you went to talk to? And were you nervous before you approached them?
I don't remember that's hard to say. I don't know who was my first one, but I know Matt Leacock was one of the first people I interviewed. And
he would be one of the first people I would think about.
Yeah, and we conducted the interview via Skype, actually. Or I think it was...
Oh, really?
Was it Skype? Or actually, no, I think it was through the phone call. So I actually got to talk to him, and I recorded the conversation so I could eventually turn it into text. But yeah, I was a little nervous, but these designers are so down to earth, and once you get talking to them, it's just like talking to an old buddy. And I've found all of them to be really approachable and very nice and very willing to talk about their games. So I was nervous, but the nerves definitely calmed down really quickly after talking with them.
Steve O'Rourke's already found your documentary, and he's posted it up there for a link for all the chat crew. So everybody check that link out, and we can see what's the name of the documentary again?
The Board Game Boom.
The Board Game Boom. We're gonna have to check that out. I was going through the list of people a couple of days ago of all the people that you interviewed, and it's like a who's who of people whose games I admire. But then I noticed one, and I said, "Wait a minute! She interviewed Elizabeth Hargrave for Wingspan? That would have been way before anybody even knew that this game was coming out. How did you get that coup?"
So, well, one of the designers I interviewed was Jamie Stegmaier, and sure. He also suggested that I talk to Elizabeth because they were publishing Wingspan for her. They were publishing with Stonemaier Games. So Jamie connected me with Elizabeth and gave her permission to talk freely about the project. At the time, I had no idea how big it was going to be. And so I kind of had this insider, knowledge about the game before everyone else did. And I knew it was a game about birds, and I knew Elizabeth worked really hard on it and how she kind of designed it. But I had no idea how big it was going to get. So it was kind of cool that I knew a little bit about it before it actually was released and announced.
Rayl has already purchased your book, Erin. She actually ordered it back on Amazon in December, but then the release date got changed to March. Is that right?
Yeah. So it's complicated. I actually am partnering up with a board game publisher.
Oh,
With all my future books, including the next printing of For the Love of Board Games. And so I will be announcing that soon, who that publisher is. But so I don't know. It'll eventually be on Amazon, but we're trying to nail down an exact date.
well, you're going to be the first person to hear this, but I actually have Elizabeth Hargraves coming on the show on April 16th. So come back on Tuesday, April 16th, and you can visit with Elizabeth again, and talk about how you already knew all the secrets for Wingspan before any of us did. I am jealous. Steve's got the point 6 degrees of Jamie. It's true. I mean, this game right now, in my opinion, is the hottest game on the internet. I mean, everybody wants to play it. I've gotten to play it twice now, 3 times now, and I'm waiting on my copy because they didn't print enough.
Yeah, I purposely became a Stonemaier champion and pre-ordered it in the first available window so I could get a copy. So I'm lucky to have scored one. Smart.
I'm not a champion. I need to be because I really wanted that Wingspan. I just haven't gotten it yet. So, BJ from Board Game Gumbo, I've got my guest Erin, who is the author of For the Love of Board Games, a book all about board games, a passion project that Steve and I wanted to have her on the show. Unfortunately, Eric's tried to log in a couple of times, and I think he's just having technical problems. So it's going to be tough. I am curious because we do have some people that watch the show each week that are actually, some of them are publishers, some of them are game designers, and most of those have been the Kickstarter route. How did you navigate the dark and stormy waters that Kickstarter can be?
Yeah, I mean, it took a lot of research. It took a lot of pre-marketing to really get my book to the success it was. Building that Facebook group, building that network of people who were interested in the product before I even launched it. And then, Kickstarter luckily does have a pretty intuitive interface, so that wasn't too hard to navigate through. But, luckily there's an influx of Kickstarter blogs and Kickstarter, advice blogs, and I was just kind of reading up on that.
Were you familiar with Jamie Stegmaier's work with his Kickstarter blog?
Yes, I was. Yep. Jamie's actually based in the same town I am, St. Louis.
Oh, okay.
And I've, met him on a number of occasions. And yeah, it's cool to have Stonemaier in my hometown.
Yeah, St. Louis, what a mecca. I mean, you guys have Jamie's there. You have Gray Fox Games that is right there. Miniature Markets that's right there.
Yep, Greater Than Games is also here. We have Genius Games. We have, like you said, Miniature Market is housed here. We have a board game bar and cafe here called Pieces. It's really this hodgepodge of board game projects and companies that, who knew that St. Louis was going to be this hub for board games.
Have you been to the big con in the spring?
Yes, and I'm scheduled to go this year again.
Is that where you did a lot of your interviews?
No, actually, most of my interviews were done via Skype.
Okay.
Yep.
I know it's always hard to say what's your favorite, but do you have a favorite person that you interviewed for your book?
I have a favorite story from an interview.
Oh, okay.
That came from Evan Derrick, from Van Ryder Games.
Sure.
Based in near Nashville, Tennessee. And, he told me a story about the inspiration behind his game called Detective City of Angels, which was on Kickstarter a couple years ago. And the story was basically, one of the inspirations for the game was that him and his wife were out at a restaurant and their car got broken into, and one of the things that was stolen was his wife's bag, which had all her art sketches in it. His wife's an artist, and all her sketches were stolen, along with the bag. And Evan kind of went in super husband mode and was like, okay, where would the robber go? He probably wouldn't go towards the restaurant because there's a lot of lights there. Maybe he would have gone down this dark alley, took a right, took a left, and eventually found the bag ditched in a dumpster, like a little bit of ways from the restaurant. And he wanted to create a game that puts you in that mindset of a detective, and that's how that game came to be.
That is interesting. I didn't realize that he was that his company was based out of Nashville. I'm gonna have to try to get in touch with him. That's not that far away from where we are down here in Louisiana. So it'd be kind of neat to have him or Van Ryder Games over at our local convention. I'll have to get in touch with him. I am curious about something. You've got art all throughout the book, and it's distinctive because it's from an artist that a lot of people, maybe they don't know his name, but they're familiar with his art. It's Manny Tremblay, who did, if I remember right, did all the art for season 1 of the Dice Throne game. How did you get in touch with Manny Tremblay?
Well, my Kickstarter manager, Von Reynolds, actually put me in touch with Manny, and he was excited to do the Kickstarter exclusive cover art, and he was a pleasure to work with, and he's obviously a very talented guy, and I was really happy with how that cover art turned out.
Yeah, it's distinctive. He's got that unique art style, and I think it gives you a good flavor for your books. Which cover did you end up going with? I have 2 of them on the screen.
Well, that's the thing, is backers were able to choose whether they wanted the Kickstarter exclusive cover or the original cover.
Okay.
So both of them were available.
Oh, I see. Okay. How did you decide who to pick? I mean, there's so many board game designers, thousands of board game designers. How did you decide who to pick?
Well, I first kind of looked at my own collection and went like, I want to learn about that game. I want to learn about this game, and just started contacting designers from the games in my collection. And obviously some are harder to get a hold of than others. And then eventually, all of a sudden, I was up to 50 designers, and I said, whoa, I got to cap this off because it's too much. But I definitely think it's safe to say I definitely want to do another sequel to For the Love of Board Games, where we go into more interviews and more designers, and definitely continue the whole interview process.
Do you have a Grail get, somebody that you just couldn't get for that first game, for the first book, that you want for that second book?
I think I have 2. Eric Lang being one, and the other being, I always butcher his name, and I butcher everything. I come from a family who we pronounce Chick-fil-A, Chick-fil-A, so I don't know how to pronounce anything. But anyway, he's the designer of Agricola. Is it Rosenberg or something?
Uwe Rosenberg?
Yes.
Okay.
I definitely wanted to get him in the book, but was unable to do so. So I think it'd be cool to have him for part 2.
Yep, Uwe Rosenberg. I've seen some written interviews that he's done, but I don't know a lot of oral interviews that he's done. I'd have to think about it. Now, Eric Lang, on the other hand, he does do a lot of interviews. So I bet with a little bit of hard work and some elbow grease, you could get that done.
Yeah, I think so too, for sure.
And I think he'd be really interesting for your book.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. He has so many popular games that are, in the top 100 on Board Game Geek, so I definitely want to pick his brain.
All right, last question. What's the most surprising thing you learned about game designers, if there's any common thread at all, that you didn't know before?
I think one thing that all the designers were stressing was the importance of playtesting and how much they playtested their games. And also, it was kind of interesting to me that kind of half the designers start with a theme where the other half start with mechanics. So every designer, it's almost like one or the other, the chicken or the egg. And I was surprised to see it was kind of almost right down the middle.
It's that age-old question, theme or mechanics. And you found It was split pretty 50-50?
Yeah. I think it's just however your brain is wired, what makes sense to you. And I personally, I'm designing a game right now, and I always start with a theme. That's just how I work. And other designers work that way too. But there's others, that start with the mechanics, and that's how they always do their game designs.
My friend Jason Dinger, he always says he has to start with the theme because the mechanics come from the theme. That's just the way that he looks at it. He's got a fishing game called Captains of the Gulf. He needed to repopulate the Gulf. And so he had to come up with mechanics that would do it naturally and randomly in some ways. So he says, I don't know how people can do a mechanic first, like Matt Riddle and Ben Pinchback. They think of this cool puzzle and then they build a game around it. He just doesn't think that way. And you sound like the same person.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that for sure. That's just how I think.
All right, so I am curious to see whether or not you get Uwe and whether you get Eric. So I'm going to be watching out for that whenever book 2 when you start doing it. You'll probably be starting to talk about that in your Facebook, I guess, your Facebook group.
Yeah, definitely. If you want to learn more about For the Love of Board Games, I definitely encourage you, or whoever's listening or watching, to go to For the Love of Board Games -book, which is a Facebook group that you can search for.
Steve O'Rourke says, great idea to let your collection guide you. And, I can kind of understand the way you did it. You look down the list of titles and say, wow, which of these games I really want to know more about? Or what was in that person's mind? What was she thinking whenever she designed a game?
Right.
And just talk to the designer. So great way. That's a good intuitive way to do it. Well, Erin, this is a board game show. And so each week we play games with a guest, and I don't know if you're familiar, but we're going to play a game called the Jambalaya game. I'll tell you the rules real quick. It's a very simple game. All we do is Steve O'Rourke works all week, and he takes board games and he takes topics and he kind of mashes them together, and we give a clue about it, and you try to guess along with the chat crew. Just a little friendly competition between you and the chat crew. They try to see if they can outguess it before you can.
Okay.
I'll give you a little hint. Steve was nice to you. He took all designers from your book. So that's kind of the common theme is these are all people that you will have met or talked to in writing your book.
Okay.
All right. So let me give you an example so you understand what we're doing. And I call it a mashup. It could be a mashup of 2 words. It could be a pun made out of the 2 words. But here's an example. This Aussie designer came up with the perfect dessert and drink pairing, cacao and scotch. Who would we be talking about? We'd be talking about Johnny Walker Harding. So Phil Walker Harding, who I think you interviewed, right?
Yep.
And Johnny Walker, the famous Scotch whiskey. So that's kind of how it works. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Are you ready to play the Jambalaya game?
I am.
All right, here we go. Here's number 1. What if an 80s metal hair band decided that they weren't going to take it anymore and left the stage to move cattle from Texas all the way to Kansas City? What would that game be called?
Great Western Trail.
Yeah, so that's the game. That is the game. But we're trying to think of a mashup between the 80s metal hair band that decided they weren't going to take it anymore.
Okay. Let's see. We're gonna take.
You know that song? We're not gonna take it anymore.
A song, and I'm like trying to think.
We're not gonna take it.
Yeah.
No, we're not gonna take it. Does that sound familiar?
That song. I don't know the band though. For the
Ooh, do you know the designer of Great Western Trail?
I do. Alexander Pfister.
Right.
And
all right, chat crew. She's giving you some good hints here
right now, so you better figure it out. Great Western Trail. I immediately understood what you were referencing.
Oh yeah, I could tell. I could see the wheels going through.
Yes.
Steve says the clue is right there with the name of the designer. Alexander Pfister, that's right. One of my favorite designers. Lots of, he was the Wolfgang Warsch of 3 years ago because he also for 2 years was just knocking it out of the park with game after game after game. And I'm hearing a lot of good stuff about Blackout Hong Kong. I got to try that game.
Yeah.
I got to try it. Oh, there's Verla. She stole it from Adam with Twisted Fister instead of
it's
Twisted Sister.
Okay.
Adam, you were close. You said Twisted Sister, but it wasn't quite it. So nice job, Verla. All right, here we got another one here. You ready?
Yes.
Using an ABBA song as the soundtrack for creating your fantasy role-playing character. And when I say role-playing, I'm using that twist. Role-playing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are we talking about here? What game are we talking about?
Talk about role player.
Yep. Talking about role player. Are you familiar with the band ABBA?
I am not.
No.
I have heard of them. What's their big song?
Oh, they've got so many big songs. Big songs. When you're as old as I am, you remember all those ABBA songs. Steve is gonna be.
I know there's one I've heard.
Oh yeah. Dancing Queen was one of them. I'll tell you, it's not the one for this one.
Mm-hmm.
Steve, this was good. This is going to be a tough one. One of the lyrics is, "If you change your mind, I'm the first in line. Honey, I'm still free. If you change your mind, I'm the first in line." Does that sound familiar at all? I'm not much of a singer, as you can tell.
Little bit.
Yeah. So Steve's giving you a clue. Who's the designer first, and then try to find the mashup.
Yeah, it's Keith Mateka.
Ah.
I do know that. Yeah.
So if you knew it was Keith Mateka. All right, chat crew, what do you think of that one? What ABBA song has Mateka in it?
I am helping you guys so much right now.
You are.
I just need, it's like at a trivia table, I know all the designers and they know all the 80s songs.
You're going to knock out all the designers. We got to get rid of these 80s songs because that's probably pretty tough there. It's easy for me and Steve, but this one's tough. Adam, you should know this one. Come on, Adam. Berla, one of you guys ought to know this one. Berla's got it. Keith Mateka, Chance on Me. Does that sound familiar? Take a chance on me. Nope.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
It does.
Good. Oh, good.
I just wouldn't have been able to pull that out of my hat.
I don't know if I would have either. I don't know. Steve's got some tough ones. Let's go with a little easier one. The only thing that makes King Domino or Five Trebs better is a scoop of ice cream on top. And remember, we're hitting them hard with all the game designers, so that's what you're really looking for. The only thing that makes King Domino or Five Tribes better is a scoop of ice cream on top.
Yeah. So that's Bruno Catala. I want to say it's maybe with his first name. Maybe not.
No. It's definitely the last name.
Okay.
Cathala.
I say Catala, but I know that's wrong.
Right. He says Bruno Cathala, or he says Cathala. Whenever I've heard him interviewed. Bruno Cathala. Ice cream on top of King Domino or Five Tribes.
Right. Yep.
Like a Five Tribes pie.
This is so embarrassing to me.
Listen, do not worry about this. Most people have trouble with this game. Steve is diabolical, and Berla is knocking it out of the park. She is saving everybody here. Cathala mode. Even Adam was close. Adam, you're so close around it. We just need to get you over the top. All right, so let's get on to the next one. Let's see. Ooh, this was a tough one for me. My wife actually got this one, so maybe you'll get it, Erin. I don't know. It depends on what you were reading. A tragic sci-fi story about an experimental treatment to increase intelligence, written in both paperback and hardback. And that's the clue for the designer. Paperback and hardback.
Steven, I'm impressed with these mashups that you've come up with.
Steve is famous.
Berla, if you're listening, listening, I'm going to give you the designer so you can come up with the answer.
Oh, you've got the design already.
Yeah. So it's Tim Fowers.
Right.
Tim Fowers. And I have maybe it's something with a flower.
Steve, she's getting it. She's getting it, Steve.
Gosh. I don't know any songs with flower in the title.
Yeah, not a song. It's a tragic sci-fi story. Lots of high schoolers have to read this story about an experimental treatment to increase intelligence. It was a man with very low IQ. He's got brain surgery to try to reverse it, and he escapes from the hospital. Oh, Adam's close. That's not the name of the book, but you're so close. Oh,
what's the name of the book?
The name of the book is the answer.
Oh, okay.
All right. So if I told you it was, you were right. It is Fowers, and it's a replacement for Flowers. Does that give you a hint? Flowers.
I can't think of any book titles with.
Yeah,
go ahead and give me the answer.
I think Adam knows what it is, so I think I'm gonna give this an Adam. It's instead of Flowers for Algernon, it's Fowers for Algernon, and that's where Adam was he was messing up the spelling, but it's Fowers for Algernon. Did you ever read that book, Flowers for Algernon?
I did not.
Yeah, my wife. I don't know if she still teaches it, but she used to teach it in her English classes. So, All right, we're going back to the 1980s, and I apologize, Steve. You're killing us on this one. Here we go. This is actually one I really like, though. I think I may have written the clue for this one, so hopefully I made it easy enough for everybody. Adam, you better get this one. Take a little Duran Duran, and the other half of the famous Kiesling duo, and you get this
Hungry like the Wolfgang.
Oh, she's got it. Yes, Hungry like the Wolfgang. We didn't even have to finish.
I knew that one right away because I know Duran Duran, Hungry like the Wolf. So finally, I redeemed myself. Hey,
Sean Jones, my buddy Sean Jones actually got Flowers for Algernon. Oh, he said Flowers, but I think Adam, I got to give Adam credit for that one because Flowers for Donna, he just had it misspelled. It's Flowers there. So yes, Hungry like the Wolfgang Kramer. So what gave it away? The Kiesling duo thing?
No,
or the Duran Duran?
Well, both of them.
Okay.
Yeah. So
see, chat crew, I can write clues. It's not just Steve that's the genius around here.
So I think we know what the common denominator is. It's just I don't understand Steven's clues. And it's,
all right.
When I hear yours, I got it.
That's exactly right. See, and Jeff's not here to tell me that I'm doing them wrong. All right, here we go. This is I actually like this. This is a good one from Steve. If you have an obligation to leave immediately and assist the designer of Citadels, you might say that. You might say what?
That's a good question.
And I'll give you a clue. If you ever watched the show before, I sold Kaiju Crush to this designer while working Gen Con 2017 for Fireside Games. That's a terrible clue.
Fireside?
Yeah, I was volunteering for Justin and Ann at Gen Con for Fireside Games, and this particular designer walked in, and I was teaching Kaiju Crush, and he watched my demo, and he came back around, he watched it again, and he walked right up to Justin. He said, "I love that little mechanic. I'm going to buy the game." And he bought it right there. I was like, "Oh yes!" Justin and I were high-fiving because both of us really respect this guy. So, if you have an obligation to leave immediately and assist the designer of Citadels, you might say that. Do you know who designed Citadels?
Yes. The name is escaping me. It's also a Bruno.
He also designed Mystery of the Abbey.
Yes, he did. Yes.
So which Bruno is that?
Last name? Faiduti?
Okay, it's Faiduti.
Faiduti?
Bruno Faiduti. He's French. Wait. Yeah, Bruno Faiduti is French. No, Cathala is French and Faiduti is Italian. I always mix it up.
Yeah. I think that's right.
You want more hints, Adam? More hints? That's all I've got for you, man. If you have an obligation to leave immediately and assist the designer of Citadels, you might say that Fiduti.
This one's not coming to me.
No,
That's the Durand one. Well, again, the common denominator, Steven.
That's close, Sean. That's close. I have Fiduti. Flip it around. It's not I have Fiduti. Fiduti.
I have.
Yeah, you got to, if you have an object, Fiduti calls. There it is. Fiduti calls. You know, if you got to leave, duty calls, right?
Okay.
Fiduti calls. Very nice. All right, I got a good one for you. Steve, this might be my favorite clue for you. This might be my favorite mashup that he did. When looking for the nocturnal birds for this brand new hot game from Stonemaier, this designer had to work overnight on the Steve, Jason didn't like your Fiduti calls. Oh, Jason. Jason, am I going to see you on March 30th? Come on, man. Come down to Lafayette. When looking for the nocturnal birds for a new game, this designer had to work overnight on the
Grave Shift. Hargrave. Right?
The Hargrave.
Shift?
The Hargrave. You're
Grave
close.
Grave Knight. Shift.
Oh, you're so close. You're so close.
The Grave. That's
what?
The Grave Shift is what I'm thinking. Like when you have the dead of night shift at a restaurant or something.
Where are graves located?
Cemeteries?
Yep. Or the grave.
Grave tombstones? Grave
The graveyard.
The graveyard. There we go.
Adam Austin got it. It's the Hargraveyard Shift. I like that one. I thought that was pretty clever. Nocturnal birds, right? Working overnight. Not bad. Were you a Seinfeld fan?
I've watched a few episodes. I haven't seen a lot, honestly.
Okay. We're going to come back to that one. We'll see about this one. Oh, yeah. How about this one? Mix this crossover music goddess and movie actress with the game Captain Sonar and A Star is Born. Now, I'll tell you, I did not get this one. So Steve says you'll get it. I didn't know this one.
Well, it's Lady Gaga.
Oh, see, I wouldn't have got that.
And it's Roberto Frega.
Ooh.
And it's so I'm trying to figure out what the question is, though. It's Lady Gaga
and Roberto
Frega.
So put them together, and it's
Lady Gaga, Roberto. I don't know. Gaga Frega.
Lady
Frega.
Lady Frega. That's it. Steve said you would get it, and he's right. Yeah, that's I mean, I know who Lady Gaga is, but I didn't know if she was in Stars Born, but I guess I should have known that. She was
very good.
She was okay. I missed it. All right. How about this one? What happens if we mashed up the game Brass and British Claymation? What would we call that?
I don't know that one.
Do you know the designer of Brass?
Martin Wallace.
Ah, okay. Did you watch a lot of that British Claymation? Those two people that would do
Wallace and Grumman.
All right. So how do you put those together?
Well, Martin Wallace. So it's Wallace and Grummet or Grummus, I think it's called.
It's Grommet. You had it right the first time. Yep. Martin Wallace and Grommet. Very simple one.
There we go.
Not bad at all, Erin. Very good. All right, we're going to finish on the last one. You ready with this?
Yes.
This unbelievably prolific designer, over 500 published games, by the way, over 500, must work nonstop. He's no lazy boy. Perhaps we should all chip in to buy him this comfy chair so he could relax. What kind of chair are we talking about?
Something. It almost makes me think of Dice Throne or something, but I don't think that's it.
Ooh, that would have been a good one. I like that, Erin. That's pretty good. So who is the most prolific game designer who has said in interviews, in his contracts, he gets one copy in every language of every edition of every game he's ever published, and he has them all in his house. Over 500 different games, and with all those different editions, I can't even imagine how many games he's got.
Is it Reiner Knizia?
So we're talking about Reiner Knizia. That's right.
King of something.
Oh, you're so close. This unbelievably prolific designer must work nonstop. He's no lazy boy. Perhaps we should all chip in to buy him this comfy style chair so he can relax. Eric, no, that's close. An Eric Lang boy. I like that. That's not bad. Sean says Nietzsche something. Well, yeah. No, actually, Sean, it's the other way around. Nietzsche is the end.
Sofa king? Or couch king? Chair king?
Nietzsche is the end of the word.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Does that help, Sean? Nietzsche is the end. So what kind of chairs do lazy boys sell?
Recliners.
Reiner Knizia boy. Close, and that's not bad. So Reiner Knizia.
Well, it's Reiner, so it's sounds like recliner.
Say it again.
Recliner. Recliner.
Recliner.
Knizia?
That's it. Recliner Knizia. That's it. Oh, Erin, you thought you were going to do bad. You ended up busting 4 or 5 of those.
I guess I have somewhat of a... I guess it's almost like, well, we were playing a games, and I come to win, so... You
definitely came to win. Yes, you were knocking them out. So good job, Erin. So, Erin, how can people reach you if they want to learn more about your book, For the Love of Board Games, which is going to be street date, I think, in March. Isn't that right?
That's the goal. Yes. The best way to reach me is on my website, Erin, ERIN Dean, DEAN.com.
Okay.
Or you can go to my Kickstarter page by just searching For the Love of Board Games Kickstarter on Google, and it should pop up as one of the first results.
Well, that is awesome. And you're hoping for Kickstarter backers to get their copies around March or April. Is that right?
Well, Kickstarter backers already have their copies.
Oh, they have theirs. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is like a second printing?
It's, getting it on the release to the public.
Release to the public. Are you considering this the first printing then?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, all right, board gamers, that's it for another episode of Gumbo Live. I want to thank my guest, Erin Dean, and of course, we had Eric Rayl on for a short time. Check out his Kickstarter page for the Game Designers documentary, and also check out the Kickstarter page or go to Erin Dean's website if you want a copy of For the Love of Board Games. I know Verla has a copy, and you should too. Make sure to like our Facebook page, facebook.com/BoardGameGumbo. It helps us to get the word out about all of our upcoming guests and shows, including we're going to be talking to Helene Capel from Burnt Island Games. They're all over Kickstarter right now with this big game In the Hall of the Mountain King. We're going to find out more about that game and why we should think about backing it. So I'm BJ from Board Game Gumbo. I want to thank my guest, Erin. And until next time, Erin, laissez le bon temps rouler.
Good night, gamers.